Of Drink with Devs. And as always, I have an extra special guest today. I have with us John from the art department.
Nice to meet you
staff,
guys.
staff right here. Been here for a while. But before we get into it, we should crack open some beer.
That's priority one.
You recommended Guinness, which we're going to split.
Okay.
Because there's only one can in the fridge. And then we're going to
right.
compare it to Hoyne's Dark Matter.
Another dark beer? Okay.
Another
that
dark
sounds
beer.
good.
Yeah.
Oh wait, our camera's not focusing.
It's not focusing.
My head is large. I might not be able to
Flip it.
I'm doing a proper pour here too.
How do I do this?
It's supposed to auto adjust, but we're just gonna angle it out.
This is not good. Oh God, I'm so sorry.
That looks much better, I think.
I
You nailed
totally
it.
screwed you out of the pour.
Okay,
Oh, that's fine.
there we go. There we go. Perfect.
That was a test. Oh my God! Are you kidding me? You got
I was
double,
thinking about
whatever.
myself first. I also poured it for myself first. But cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody.
It's very rare that I drink Guinness, to be honest. So smooth.
All right.
So we should just get down to it.
Okay.
Your name is John, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I am the art director here at Eastside Games. I have been here for 6 years. Started out on Pop Farm when it basically first came out. I was brought on as like a hired gun to help crank out some of the cool content, some of the first gen content. Technically second, I consider it kind of second gen. So we were a different company back then. We were called Downtown Eastside Games.
I heard about that.
Yeah, and we were in the downtown east side of Vancouver, and we were just about 10 people, and we had this crazy game that I saw and played and fell in love with when I was thinking about coming out and working here. And Galen and Steven were both the co-creators of that game and had the first sort of level. So what did we have back then? I'm sure there's some players out there who are probably remember this. So that was before Critters, before anything really. You could basically farm, and you had the Avatar system, and that's pretty much it.
Was it called Pop Farm at that point?
It was called Pop Farm, it was, and there wasn't quests yet. We had a thing that was an icon on the HUD that was like coming soon, and that was like on there for I think it was at least a year or so, and we felt really bad about that. But we had inherited a game that we kind of redressed and made it Pop Farm. The idea from the start was to make a fun farming game in this style of kind of Freak Brothers 70-ish 70s comic book aesthetic. It's not quite as far as the Freak Brothers, but like a throwback to that kind of time.
Taking a look at that. It's on our library shelf, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and they're super cool, and they're really super crazy, and you know, it would have been fun to go that far, but we kind of took it a step back from that, and but that was like one of the original inspirations for the game, and so I came in with this already sort of established, and there was no animators or anything to work on it, so basically they put me in, and I just started plugging away, and from there we started. I think the next thing was among the first things we built all the critters. So I did the Dozy Bunny and the Paranoid Bear and all the original
The classic ones.
classic critters. Did the animation for them, and you know, some of the original contraptions. Although a lot of those were set up, and then we brought in the Munchie plants. After that, we got some help with that as well. So the original set of the Munchie plants, the pizza flower.
So far back. It's so
yeah,
far.
so it was
before my
pre-Munchie
time.
plants, pre-critters, just really the original set of pot plants, and which were pretty normal-ish as far as you could say. And then things went crazy from there.
How big was the team back then? If you
The
remember.
whole team, including everybody, was about 12 people at the most.
Dang, it's so small. Remember, you can ask
That
questions
includes
too.
HR and the CEO and like everyone.
God.
So yeah.
You can ask questions in chat. Keep them related to our lovely developer here, and we will go through them as we go. Ginger, on the good. Do we have anything yet?
No, but we did have a comment from Pam that the volume was a bit low today.
You gotta turn up that computer.
Yeah.
Crank it.
And, lots of hellos.
Cool.
I'll speak loud. I got a loud voice anyway, so that should do.
I can pretty much hear you wherever you are in the
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did you get into this industry? Were you always in games, or was that something that came
No,
out?
actually, this was my first stint in games.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. I did some freelance stuff, but my background was in the animation industry in
Okay.
Vancouver. So I went to Vancouver Film School and worked in animation for about 10 years or so.
It's a long time.
Yeah. And I started with the paper hand-drawn stuff.
Yeah.
Where you're flipping paper, and that stuff sort of died, or became too expensive to do in the industry. I had to kind of adapt, and then got into Flash, and watched the kind of industry evolve. So I was always kind of jumping around disciplines, and it's the type of work where you gotta constantly evolve and learn new things, and push to learn new things, and work at different studios,
Yeah.
and you, after 5 years of slogging like that, you get other opportunities, which is nice.
Can you mention any of your past projects you worked on before you said
Yeah,
games?
sure. I don't know if anyone would know. Well, there was films there's like wacky films. So there was the first one of the first big projects was a sequel to like Prince of Egypt. It was like
Oh yeah.
Joseph.
Oh yeah, I
So
remember
it's
that.
straight to video. I worked on Sinbad, was the last classical animation thing, the feature film Sinbad, which was alright too, not the greatest. But then some TV shows were, there's a really cool one that's done locally, I'm not sure if they still do, it's called Kid vs. Cat. Worked on the pilot for
I
that.
heard of it.
There's a really great show called Puka, which is based on the Korean anime character that I did a season of that. The new incarnation of George of the Jungle.
You're still making those?
Martha Speaks. That's another kids show. A bunch of like Saturday morning kind of cartoon type
Cool.
stuff for the most part. A few. Oh, I did the Powerpuff. I worked on doing compositing on the Powerpuff Girls movie.
Oh man,
Stuff
that's
like
awesome.
We got lots of questions rolling in now,
that.
John.
Oh, okay.
Shoot.
So Kimberly wants to know if you ever anticipated this platform game would grow to 1 million daily players.
No, yes and no. So when I started, it was like, what happened, it was just a bunch of, like I said, about 10 people in a room making this game, and it was live by the time I played it before I started working here just to see what I was getting into, and loved it, freaked out. And at that point it had already like launched, but it wasn't quite at the 1 million. So this company freaked out, like, oh my god, we need help. And I was among those people they brought in. But so I kind of knew it was going to get big, but we had no idea. And especially in terms of community and all the you awesome people, like the years that followed, I would have never imagined in a million years seeing like people like Dozy Bunny like tattooed on people, and like just the fan, how awesome and dedicated and also like how like the fans were and how they work together as a community.
Yeah.
And like
Dedicated.
is so beyond what I've seen in any other game, let alone a Facebook game. Certainly I've never experienced anything like that, and especially in my other field, you know, like I have some friends who worked on like My Little Pony and stuff like that, and you know, yeah, there's a huge fan base there, and there has been with some of the other shows I worked on, but you work for like a year on something, and then like, it goes away into post-production for another 6 months to a year. By the time it's released, it's been 2 years since you maybe animated on it, and then you start to get feedback, and you're like, oh yeah. But with this, we would do we'd have crazy ideas for some new theme or something, and then work really hard, get something out, and then instantly have like a reaction to it.
Yeah.
And that was like super rewarding and fun for me. So yeah, the scope of the community I could never have imagined. It was definitely, I think, among the most rewarding parts of the job.
And it's still going too, which is
Still
insane.
going after 6 years is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful for it. And it's such a fun project because it's like always new and fresh, and as an artist especially, it's like we're just constantly brainstorming new ideas, and like, the studio itself is bigger, but the crew on Pot Farm is still quite small, and they try to work within their means to do what they can. We always wish we could do more, but it's still fun to like sort of put together whatever we can.
There's so many zany assets in there.
Yeah.
What was one of your favorite assets to work on, actually?
That I specifically worked on? Okay, so I have things that I did. So as over the years, I kind of got more responsibility, started supervising, became the lead, and then eventually like had to pass the torch on to other artists who now are the masterminds behind the game and brought the game to the 21st century, so to speak, because I'm a little old school with my pot references. But so there's favorite assets that I've got other people to do, and there's my favorite assets that I did. So okay, my favorite asset, I'll start with the favorite asset that I got other people to do, which is my one of my favorite is the Uncle Floyd head crab thing.
It's so creepy.
Yeah,
From The Thing.
It's so disturbing.
Good.
Yeah, because I love The Thing. Is one of my favorite movies, and it was just so creepy and hilarious to me. Now that gets different reactions out of different people. Some people don't. Probably a lot of people don't like it at all. But yeah, that's one of the things. My favorite thing, and this is what I love about Galen, who's also who's the original co-creator of the game, that whatever made him happiest were the things that were also slightly creepy. So it was just like, like just a bit, and I should say better, maybe not creepy, but just depraved. So the like things that were kind of cute and depraved at the same time, like that's the classic Pot Farm combo. So that's one of them. My favorite asset, damn, I did so many. I gotta say, it'd probably be like working on all the critters was the most fun, because there's so much character.
The original ones?
Yeah.
Or like, yeah?
I think the original set, just because it was finding that line too, between being cute and slightly depraved, and yeah, I think just that kind of fun part of character design, bringing a new character into the game.
Well, it's interesting because those have like just stayed in the game ever since.
Yeah,
they're
like
always getting new skins.
There are
and
different
being
incarnations
readjusted, but
of
they're
them.
the same at heart.
There's some fun, and one of the favorite of the most recent versions of those was the weird like alien gray critters.
During the conspiracy theory?
No, like fairly. Oh, maybe yeah.
It was a
most recent
conspiracy,
yeah, where they kind of look like they've been dipped in latex and they're kind of like weird. And, again, I like the creepy ones.
Any other questions,
Yes,
Roland?
there are lots of questions.
All right, hammer some
So
out.
let's see. What's your favorite author? Who's your favorite artist?
Let's stop with those. We'll
Okay, we'll
tackle
do those
those.
too.
Those are tough ones.
Yeah, those are biggies.
Artist depends on like picking like mediums and genres and all that kind of stuff. So I can't pinpoint a specific medium, but like I'd say like old school painter artists. I love Degas a lot because his use of color, and he always like painted motion. So there's always so much motion. I don't know if that's my animator roots in that. More recently, it's tricky.
Stressful interview.
One of my favorite directors in animation is Tartakovsky, who did like the Samurai Jack series.
Oh, they're coming back.
Yeah, I'm so excited for that.
It's gonna be really
just
good.
a beautiful show, and I love that style, that super graphic style as well.
Mhm.
Authors is very difficult, but I got hooked recently anyway, I'll say, on Dashiell Hammett, who did a lot of the old film noir books. Like all his books got made into like movies like Maltese Falcon and Red Harvest and all these different things. So he's like 20s detective kind of stories that are just really rich and
Those are always fun to read.
Fun. But so many more. I love Kurt Vonnegut. I love. There's so many to say. Yeah.
Too hard. And you're just forgetting the ones that are probably like really, really good too. I always do that. I like list books off, and then like 10 minutes later, I'm like, I totally forgot about that book.
There's a really awesome book that's really I do like classical literature too. Like back in the day, I was obsessed
Back in the
with
day.
that. And there's a really hilarious book that's like an old book. It's called The Decameron, which is written by Boccaccio, who's an old Italian like Renaissance writer. I think it's just post like Black Plague. Anyway, it's a crazy. It sounds like a really old, boring book, but actually, it's 100 stories. It's too much to get into, but it's like the funniest book I've ever read.
And you wrote it after the plague?
Yeah. And it's basically like
not expecting humor coming out of that one.
It's like funny stories about like there's a lot of weird like sex with like priest stories and shit like that. Anyway, I'm not gonna get into like it's not church bashing or anything, but it's pretty amazing. And what it is like he's just being really provocative and crazy.
Yeah.
And the whole point of the book is it's like he's using characters to say really controversial shit. And can I swear, by the way? I don't know.
Man, it's too late now.
We'll crack another beer. Just go for it.
Just do it.
They use characters to get away with using really controversial things. So it's like saying, "Oh, it's not me; it's my characters are saying this stuff." So that's the whole point of that book. It's big and thick and crazy, but it's really easy to read.
Check it out.
Yeah, it's fun.
Do you have any other ones coming in?
Yes. Someone wanted to know if you liked Greek food and if your background was Greek because you look Greek.
Oh, that's pretty slick. You know, Greek. Is that person Greek? Because Greeks have a natural Greek detector where they can tell.
Yeah, they just.
They can tell instantly. Yes, indeed, I am. Which is part of the reason why I got obsessed with like classical stuff, literature and stuff. And my dad made me read the Iliad and the Odyssey and all that stuff.
Really?
Iliad's a painful book to read, by the way. You maybe don't want to bother with that, but the Odyssey's better. It's like, and this man who was the son of this one who did this. Yeah, anyway.
Can't
Greek food, yes, of course, but I'm a total snob, and I enjoy making it more than eating it other people's. Well, if there's a really people who make it, like people I know, so basically homemade Greek food I like, but restaurants, unless it's a really good restaurant.
You know any good ones in Vancouver?
No, I don't really.
Never mind then.
Yeah, I hear there are some. It's good, but it's not like
not up to your standards.
It's just not the same. I'm used to the like home, grandma style.
I have another question for you. If you could go back to the beginning of Pop Farm, would you do anything differently?
Yeah, a lot of things.
Really?
Differently. A whole lot. But the most important thing to me that we never got the time for, and there was technical issues with this, believe it or not, was the whole first time user experience. The tutorial. I always wanted to have this awesome kind of like comic book sequence at the start that introduced you to the world, introduced you to Floyd. There was like a funny story about Floyd, and it didn't have to get too much in a story, but just enough to get you in the world and to give you the idea of that, like this is kind of like a little silly comic book world.
Well, Grassroots kind of did that.
We
a
did
little
a little
kinda
bit.
touched on
That's kind of where that came from. Was we wanted to at least act on that a bit. But yeah, and I wanted to have that continue throughout, like, so, you know, like 20 levels in, bring back another like panel
That
sequence.
would have been cool.
Actually, one of my favorite things I just remembered was way back on a Valentine's theme was a whole
Nessie and
Nessie
Sasquatch
and
love story.
Sasquatch love story that was presented in a comic book panel. So it was like a puzzle in the puzzle mechanics. So you would collect the pieces, you'd collect the actual story panels, and you you reveal over time the whole story. And I thought that was so cool. And I would love to have done that like throughout the whole game. And I feel like if we had just had that established, we could do that. And I always think, you know, there's still time for that. That one day we could go back and do that. But it is so much work, and that's really what it came down. It was just so much work, and we didn't want it to, like, we didn't want to stop the flow of content. And in the end of the day, you know, if we want to keep people going with Quest and keep getting cool new content out there, and it was like a matter of having to choose between
There
one
are
or the
two
other.
type of people out there. People that start a game and just want to skip the cutscene tutorial right away, just get to the game, and if they can't, they get frustrated, and people that really love it. So it's a hard thing to balance for sure.
Yeah, we didn't want to shortchange the content. At the end of the day, we wanted to keep, you know, we wanted to keep giving, you know, keep providing good content for our players.
Cool. Any other questions?
Yeah, there's some more. So Nikki wants to know where your inspiration comes from, and Sia wants to know, where was it? Sia wants to know if you have art at home, and if you do, like, who's your favorite artist for that?
You purchase art. You collect.
Oh, like a collector.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I mostly collect art from my friends. I would love to. To make enough money to like collect kind of like big art pieces, but knowing a lot of artists and wanting to support them, and because they're awesome, and I would love to have some of their work. I usually, if I'm spending money on art, it's on their work, and I could totally plug some of them, but I'm not gonna think about that. But maybe I could we could
come
post
back to it
something later,
if you
or
want.
maybe we could post something on the wall. But yeah, so usually friends' work. What inspires me? You know, being a stoner, I try to think like, what would I, you know, like, what is? I just try to think about like, you know, weed culture and things that I think are fun and funny, and it's really just anything in the world. So it's like trying to. You know, we try to be topical, but it's not really even about that. It's just, you know, looking around, like, you know, whether it's, you know, TV shows or art or content that's out there, or just like things that are going on in the world too. Just looking, taking it like a step back and looking at it and laughing mostly about it, and thinking about ways to make fun of it mostly. So satire, and that's really what, to me, the beauty of Pot Farm is. It can be, we can reference anything, because you know, anything is funny for a stoner sometimes. But no, we can reference anything and just have fun with it. And because but we always wanted to keep it friendly and fun and light, and not really, you know, take political positions. Not that I'm totally into politics, but it just wasn't really about that. It was just about, we really wanted to, it was really about the community. We really wanted to, we saw such a great group of people. We really wanted to make a world where everybody could come together. And that, to me, is really a big part of pot culture also.
Yep.
And we wanted to honor that, basically. So anything that we thought could add to that. So we really wanted to be as diverse and broad as possible. So it's like, the sci-fi people get their thing, and then we could go to like westerns, and then we could go to like, it could just be any genre or topic, and as long as we could find a way to represent it in a humorous way, that was the goal.
Cool.
Pam says, thank you, John, for all the great designs that you have been a part of creating for us here in Pop Farm. And she also wants to know, what's the most difficult design you've been a part of?
Well, you're very welcome. It's been my honor, first of all, to be a part of this. And that's all because of you guys. So thanks to you, actually, for that. And the most difficult design. Oh yeah, there's been a few. Some of those crazy contraptions that are just like really intricate. I'm trying to think of something now off the top of my head. There's like literally hundreds and hundreds.
Complicated bong hydro. That's just like
that one was intense. There's the fun house too. That's like opens up and then around. And there's all the animation on the track. But to be honest, new characters or new critters are the hardest thing, because you really want them to fit and feel like they're a part of the world. Yeah. And that's actually the most challenging thing over the years was, and I compare it to like The Simpsons. Not that we're necessarily The Simpsons, but
we're on par.
Sure, we've been. But like you watch a season 1 of The Simpsons, and then you watch like season 10, and it looks totally different. And that's just what happens over the years with an IP. It just naturally changes incrementally. You don't notice it year to year, but if you go back, 6-7 years, you notice it. And because this game is constantly a living entity that you just keep sort of feeding, like those things don't go away. They're there constantly. Yeah. So trying to like push what you can do in Pop Farm, but at the same time respecting the style and trying to keep everything in the same style, but also push the style, because you have to, was really difficult. And we're not always successful. Yeah. But like you can see some of the early assets and some of the newer assets, and you can sort of tell the difference. But I think as a whole it fits, and it's at least in the spirit of the game especially. Yeah.
We're running a little bit over schedule, but I really wanted to ask you what your favorite East Side game story was. Something that's happened here. Okay. Something over the whole 6 years.
So I would say my favorite thing goes back a while, like to the Downtown East Side Games thing. Yeah. So the studio that we were in, I found out through a little bird that was actually a place that used to sell pot. Yeah. So, a studio that obviously not when we were there, but before we had moved in, it was like a place that would sell weed, and people would just ring the bell and say some kind of code, and they would go up and buy weed. And so we would get visits from like people who'd be buzzing in and be like, hey, something's not right. And we'd be like, oh, what? Okay, and just buzz them in, and they'd kind of look in and look around and be like, what the hell? And being like, literally some people asking for weed, and we were like, well, we've got this digital weed product. We don't do that, and I heard we were on a watch list with the government at one
No
point.
way.
Because of the location, I think.
Yeah, and
so they must have known about
your
it.
IP called Pop Farm. You were
dealer.
It's like it's like maybe.
Technically, so we just digital cartoon.
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny. That stopped after about a year or so.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Everything else are just funny stories with people who work here and over the years.
Those stories are bottomless.
Yeah.
They're still going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. As much as I would like to get more questions, we're gonna have to wrap it up here. This is a pretty long show already. Thank you so much for tuning in for episode 5. We'll be back next week. I'm 99% sure we'll be back next week. The production value of the show keeps on going up. We got a new tablecloth. I got a new shirt.
Yes, someone noticed the tablecloth.
Yeah, we're moving on up here. Yeah. Next week we'll be in the back of a limo.
Really?
No.
Oh, that was like, I'll go
we had
on
to
that
get you
one
out of the
too.
way first.
Yeah.
I wish.
Getting a budget.
Yeah, if you didn't know, we are Eastside Game Studios. We make Pop Farm on Facebook and some other games in the Pop Farm universe on Android and other mobile devices, I believe. And yeah, so check us out online on the interwebs. And thank you very much.
Cheers.
And cheers.
To you guys.